folks, welcome in on a special quarantine episode of I Had a Theory. Here with my friend Hernan Sias with the Business Bros. You've heard him on this very popular podcast, and I've been a guest on his show. And I was super excited to be able to repay the favor and have him share one of his theories on my show. So thank you, Hernan, for joining us. Tell us what's going on. What do you got? What are you talking about?
Awesome, man. So, I'm a big numbers guy. I kind of like to look at the statistics, and the numbers on this whole coronavirus thing just don't 100% jive with me. I'm being cautious and optimistic just because I want to make sure that I keep people safe as much as possible, but the numbers don't always add up. And so I started kind of, 500,000 people have been infected worldwide compared to 7.8 billion people on the planet. That doesn't seem nearly as much of a cause for a pandemic. So my theory is masses of people, populations of people are often controlled and manipulated by fear. And so maybe we're long overdue for a recession. Usually these types of things happen in 10-year cycles. We're overdue. So maybe this one's manufactured.
So that's an interesting theory, and I've had similar thoughts. How is the world coordinating this?
So I don't know if it's a world coordinating type thing. If it, the world is affected, I think the coronavirus is truly a thing, right? But I've heard so many different medical people, quote unquote, talk about what kind of virus strains this is. And they're saying, oh, there's two types of virus strains. There's one that acts just like their regular flu. And then there's one that could be fatal for people with underlying conditions, right? And I think as we're getting this infection to go worldwide and people are spreading out, I think the masses are doing the normal flu thing and very few are dying. But that doesn't even compare to what the normal seasonal flu does, right? So the fear of death, regardless of the number of deaths, right? If nobody's talking about 7.8 billion people on the planet and they're only focusing on 20,000 people that died, if you continue to hear 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 people dying, that scares you, regardless of whether you see that in comparison to alcohol related deaths as far as driving your car or people crashing in a plane or people getting, attacked by sharks, whatever it is. If you hear it more often, you get scared.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, now the deeper question is, if it is kind of a manufactured concern or a fear to control populations, and dig this, because I heard yesterday, one of my friends, his fiance is a doctor on a medical mission in Peru, and she's trapped in the country. She's been trapped there for 10 plus days, and she can't leave because now it's martial law, and the U.S. has done a bad job of repatriating people from Peru. So she's stuck in a hotel. She can only leave every 3 or 4 days to get some groceries to cook in her microwave.
Wow.
And so now she can't go, and it's martial law, which means that the army is now in control. And we're seeing this in the U.S. too, with the deployment of National Guard to help people, but also to make sure that people are staying inside and not congregating and not meeting up in groups because they're there to stop them. And that's almost martial law in the United States too.
And that's what you got to kind of be cautious and wary about. I mean, look at, history has a way of telling you what's going to happen in the future, right? It's if you're not allowed, thank goodness for the internet and the ability for us to communicate, because if we were quarantined in a situation where you're not allowed to go out and congregate with people, where you're not allowed to share your opinion, how are you going to express, even if this is just a theory, even if this is just an opinion, even if it's not substantiated, the fact that you can't communicate with another human being to say, no, that doesn't work, or yes, that's actually validated, it really limits your ability to communicate with other people and have that interaction to get clarity. And so whoever is in control, who's instituting martial law, who's instituting these lockdowns or whatever's going on, they have the power. And then all of a sudden, it's one of those things where if you give up your freedom for fear, for security, like what do you actually ultimately lose? You're losing your freedom. You're freely giving it up.
Yeah, because you want that safety, and that goes back to your original theory of the fear-induced control that people are trying to get. And so let me take this one step further. Is there a capitalism angle to this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what you're hearing right now is a lot of people's fears, and they have no idea what they're going to do next. They got laid off from work. They may be not able to pay their bills. They're worried about losing their homes. You're seeing money pumped into the economy through federal government, and it sounds like, oh, we're trying to help all these people, right? Well, take another approach. Money and wealth does not disappear. It never does. It changes hands.
Transfers.
Right?
Yep.
It transfers to other people. It transfers to other groups. And so when you see the government shifting large amounts of money and they're saying, oh, this is a stimulus package that goes to us, think about it. You're locked in your home. You're going to get a check for, $1,200, $2,400, whatever dollars. Where are you going to spend it? You're locked in your house. There's nothing you can do with that. What you're not seeing is when government passes a bill, especially if it's a monetary bill, they promote the headline of stimulus going out to all Americans, whatever. What you don't get promoted are all the additional things that get funded through this bill that just, it's the pork under there. It's the things that get funded to other places. The let me scratch your back, thanks for the contributions to my campaign type things that happen all the time. And
sure,
you
the
don't
corporate
get
bailouts.
all the time.
Right?
All the
corporate
time.
bailouts, the bigger things like that. I heard a variation of this is, hey, giving money to citizens so they can pay for their livelihood sounds a lot like socialism a little bit, right?
It totally does.
And is it also a possibility to say, okay, cool, now we're losing 10% of jobs or 20% or 30% are going to be unemployed. But meanwhile, Amazon and Walmart and Costco are hiring people at minimum wage. And now that's taking people that might have been making $20, $30, $40 an hour and saying, okay, we got you a job, but we're going to cut you back down to $12 an hour or $13 an hour. Right? And so now it increases your income inequality. The rich get richer, the poor get even poorer because there's no jobs, and now we've just dropped our wage costs for a huge portion of the population.
And this is for me one of those things where education is vital, right? It's people become you're either taking power or you're being taken advantage of, and it usually comes at the expense of what what you're educated. We live in a world where you're not going to get, for the most part in this country, right, you're not going to get taken in the corner and made to disappear for your knowledge and information. However, you will advance as an individual if you're able to know a little bit more, if you have clarity of thought, if you're willing to question what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Give it a little bit of thought. It's not to say that these theories are 100% one way or the other. It's your ability to question the status quo. Don't go and follow the herd just because the herd is going in one direction. Stop, plant your feet, take a look around, notice what's going on. What is the herdsman doing? Why is he not panicking? Why is the flock going in one direction, but he's just standing in one corner? Ask the questions, because that's where you're going to get a little bit more information, and you're going to stand out amongst the crowd.
So you're exactly nailing the head, and I want to kind of wrap this up soon. But the thing is that even if we know it, and even if we're not listening to media and the sound bites and what people tell us that we know may be against what the facts are, because we'll accept it and we see it happening, right? We know that people that are in power, we know that the media is projecting information that's what they want us to hear necessarily, not necessarily what's true. But if we know it, now what? We're still stuck in the system. How do we change where the people have the voice and not the corporations? That's the bigger problem, is that we're losing our representative democracy with the setup we have now, and with this fear-based control of the population with the quarantine right now.
Yeah, that's a much more difficult question, because that becomes an individual and accountability thing, right? The currency system is only around because we're dependent on a currency system. If we were to be more of a barter system, each of us has individual skills and the ability to do different things. If we were to go back to more of a barter system, even if it's not mainstream, but if it's a way to survive, we would have a different, there would be less control. Right? Every time we give up control, whether it's our ability to shop at Walmart, whether it's our ability to get up and go somewhere because Amazon's going to deliver it, every time you give up a little bit of control, you're giving up a little bit of your freedom. and we're doing it for convenience sake. We're doing it for security's sake. So be willing to work. There are people who are out there willing to work, willing to minimize, willing to put away the luxuries of what this world has to offer to have control of their own life. And that has to be an option. Do you have to exercise it? No, but it should be an option. You should have the capability or the knowledge to maybe weld something, to have a carpenter skill, to till some fields, to do something that is productive to society, where you can barter that skill for something else that you need.
That's a huge takeaway. Hernan, appreciate you talking and sharing. And the point of this podcast is exactly what we've been doing, is to get people to think creatively, think of your own ideas, challenge what you know, challenge what you've been heard, so you can kind of come to your own conclusions and figure out a better way to improve your life, because what they're sharing with you might not be everything, right? You shouldn't have to be backed into a corner and forced to do something. You should still be able to choose.
Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. Like, subscribe, comment. Love to hear what people have to say on this topic. I've got a theory with Henish. Thank you to my guest, Hernan Sias, and the Business Bros, for joining me.
Have a good one.